Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to demystify some seriously complex tax theory and uncover exactly how different tax systems secretly shape your personal wealth and your daily habits. We're going to break down the math and the incentives that silently drive our economy.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our structural roadmap for today. We'll start with income tax versus consumption tax, then look at the freedom of VAT, unpack the regressive tax problem, look at the EITC solution, and wrap up with a path out of poverty.
So, I want you to ask yourself a quick question. Does your tax bracket actually dictate your life choices? I mean, right now, under our current income tax system, the honest answer is often yes. The way you earn, the way you save, and how you invest, all of that is heavily influenced by the taxes tied to those specific activities. It really makes economic theory deeply, deeply personal.
All right, Section 1, income tax versus consumption tax.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core difference between these two frameworks, which is honestly fascinating. Think about it. An income tax essentially taxes what you put into the economy. When you work, when you save, when you invest, basically when you're building economic value, you get taxed. Now, a consumption tax, it does the exact opposite. It taxes what you take out of the economy, meaning you're only taxed when you actually consume.
But there's a massive mechanical difference between these two approaches, and it comes down to two words: double taxation. With an income tax, the government takes a bite the minute you earn your money. But then, if you bravely take that after-tax money and invest it, those returns, they're taxed again. Economists actually point out that this acts as a huge anchor on compound interest. It's essentially penalizing you for creating future value. Crazy, right?
And because different types of income are taxed at completely different rates, an income tax system creates these really powerful and sometimes bizarre behavioral incentives. People are naturally incentivized to shift their income into lower tax categories. Or, they'll choose investments simply because they're tax favored, not because they're actually good investments. Ultimately, this distorts the market. It pulls resources away from highly productive uses and funnels them straight into tax avoidance strategies instead of real value creation.
Moving right along to Section 2, the freedom of VAT.
So what exactly is a VAT? A value-added tax is basically a broad consumption tax that gets applied to what you spend. And why does this matter? Well, under a VAT, your savings and your investments are allowed to grow completely free from that annual tax drag we literally just talked about. It aligns perfectly with a value-based market system. Under a VAT, resources flow toward actual economic value, rather than people just endlessly chasing tax loopholes.
Advocates of a VAT argue that it actually provides a really unique kind of economic freedom. Under this system, you are in direct control of the timing and the size of your tax burden. It's incredibly straightforward. If you choose to consume less, guess what? You pay less tax. If you consume more, you pay more tax. And if you choose to save and invest your money, you defer that tax entirely. Your tax bill scales strictly with your own lifestyle choices.
Now for the plot twist. Section 3. The regressive tax problem.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it reveals a stark disparity. A flat VAT is just a flat percentage on spending. But look at low-income households. They spend almost all of their income on basic survival consumption. Rent, food, clothing. High-income households, on the other hand, spend only a tiny fraction of their total income on consumption. They can easily save or invest the rest of it.
And because low-income earners have to spend a much higher percentage of their money just to live, a flat VAT mathematically takes a larger percentage of their total income compared to wealthy earners. This is the very definition of a regressive tax. It's totally unbalanced. So without some targeted mechanism to fix this, a pure VAT system disproportionately hurts the poor. It just doesn't work on its own. Which brings us to our fix in Section 4, the EITC solution.
Enter the hero of our economic story, the Earned Income Tax Credit, or EITC. This is a refundable tax credit strictly for low to moderate income workers, and it's designed specifically to subsidize work and boost take-home pay. The working theory here is that targeted refundable credits can perfectly offset the VAT burden for low-income earners. So basically, the government collects this broad consumption tax from everyone, but then takes the revenue raised and returns it directly back to low-income workers as cash.
Let's move to the math and see how this builds a completely different financial reality. Imagine a worker earning $20,000. Let's assume there's a 10% VAT in place, so they pay $2,000 in tax over the year on all their spending. But the system steps in and gives them a basic $2,000 VAT rebate plus a $5,000 EITC simply because they are working. When you add all of that up,
The net result? It isn't a tax bill at all. It's a net gain of $5,000. By pairing a flat VAT with the EITC, low-income workers actually come out way ahead. They are effectively subsidized by the system, but they're still fully participating in a broad, consumption-based tax framework. It's honestly a fascinating workaround.
And economists broadly favor this specific pairing because of its immense efficiency. Look, instead of complicating the tax code with special 0% VAT rates on things like food or housing, which totally distorts market prices and gets super messy, you just keep the VAT broad and neutral. Use direct cash transfers to help the households that actually need it. Plus, think about it. A VAT on its own doesn't encourage anyone to work. But the EITC? That adds a really powerful pro-work incentive to the mix that a VAT desperately needs.
All right, let's look at our final piece. Section 5, a path out of poverty. So the EITC is actually built like a three-phase staircase, specifically designed to naturally shape human behavior. Step 1 is the phase-in, where the credit actually increases as you earn more money. Step 2 is the plateau, where that maximum credit stays flat even as your wages grow. And finally, Step 3 is the phase-out, where the credit declines gradually. Let's look a bit closer at how that very first step actually encourages work.
Here is the phase-in math in action. Let's say the credit rate is 40%. For every single dollar you earn from working, the government gives you an extra 40 cents in credit. If you earn $5,000, you get $2,000 in credit. Earn $10,000, you get $4,000. Entering the workforce and taking on extra hours becomes incredibly attractive financially. Why? Because every single hour worked increases your wages and your tax credit at the exact same time.
So the crucial point here is how the system handles you making more money as you advance in your career. In older welfare models, getting a small raise could literally mean losing all of your benefits. It created this massive benefits cliff that actively punished upward mobility. But the EITC's gradual phase-out, it acts more like a small surcharge. As you earn more, the credit just slowly tapers off, meaning you still keep the vast majority of your extra earnings. The math ensures that work always, and I mean always, pays more than not working.
Which leaves us with this final, somewhat provocative thought. Should our tax system penalize you for putting value into the economy? Or should it empower you to control your own tax burden and actively choose your own path to wealth? The VAT paired with the EITC presents a really fascinating alternative to the status quo. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it sparks your curiosity to look a little deeper into how the tax policies around us truly shape our lives.